potato. Hey man, hey. Okay, so this is a little new for me, posting something on YouTube. Let me pause. I'm such a freaking dumbass. I sort of introduced myself, but I didn't say my name. My name is Danielle, and like I said, this is my first YouTube video, and as you've probably noticed, it's kind of long, especially for someone's first video, but like, I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, I'll introduce myself properly in the next video. I promise I won't forget to do it. So yeah, just wanted to pop in to tell you guys that, and yeah, enjoy. The reason you haven't seen anything from me is because this is the first time I'm wearing a face. No, I haven't made a YouTube video ever in my life. So this is how I'm choosing to kick off my YouTube channel. I will be reviewing movies, so this will be like a movie commentary channel. So basically I'll give you the synopsis, the overview of the movie, and then just give you my thoughts and opinions on aspects of the movie, such as like the characters, the plot, the setting, whatever. Yeah, if you'd like that, like this and subscribe, and yeah, let's get into it. Also, yeah, I just want to say before we go any further, to anyone out there, I hope you are well. I hope you're doing well. I hope your soul is good. I hope you're sanitizing. I hope you're drinking your water and minding your business. We gotta stay safe out there. You gotta be wearing your mask over your nose. Please and thank you. That's the imperative part. So we're really getting into it now. Yeah. So the movie we will be reviewing today is Twilight, the first movie of the Twilight Saga franchise. Is it just the Twilight Saga? Twilight, the first movie from the Twilight Saga. The reason I'm kicking off with this movie specifically is because I know this series back to front, like the back of my hand. Like, I was so obsessed with it when it came out. Not like obsessed with it to the point where I had like, I wallpapered my walls with like posts and stuff. No, because I was a cool girl, you know, just in case like Robert Pattinson or Taylor Lautner ever came to my room, they would see I was cool and I wasn't obsessed with them because I didn't have any of their posters on my wall. I genuinely thought like that, yeah, because that's how my 13-year-old brain worked. Anyway, but I was a fan to the point where like my teachers would confiscate books from me because I would try to read them under the desk and stuff. Be discreet with it all. Like, I had a little folder on my Samsung E250 called Twihard, where I just had like pictures of the characters. And back when I was that age, like, everyone knew, like in my primary school, everyone knew that Twilight was synonymous with Danielle. So anything or anytime anyone wanted to know something or wanted to let anyone know anything about the Twilight universe, I was the plug. So when the movies came out, I was like, this one is for the boys, and I was there. Anyway, so like I said, I'm just gonna run over the plot and then I'm going to break it down, gonna give you my thoughts and opinions on Bella, on Edward, and just on anything in between. Yeah, for real now, let's get into it. Okay, so we open with our protagonist, Isabella, aka Bella Swan. She lived with her mother in Florida, but she is planning on moving back to live with her father to a little town named Forks because her mother is auditioning for WAGs, I guess. I don't know. It's power to the mom for like pursuing her happiness and going to be with the guy she loved or whatever. But I mean, like, uprooting your child from everything she's known for like most of her conscious life, because she left Forks like halfway through her childhood. Like, she did live there for a while, but then I think when her parents separated, she went to live with her mom in Florida. So she does know folks, but still, the fact that you're uprooting her from everything that she spent like a lot of puberty in, and just like going with your boyfriend to live his baseball dreams. And also she's like 17, so like you couldn't just wait a year until she was like, she would like leave the house anyway, or leave for college or whatever. Anyway, so she goes to stay with her father, Charlie Swan, in this dreary little town named Forks, where it's always raining, you know, the perfect setting for our angsty teen romance. She catches up with a few people that she knew, like I said, from her childhood. She doesn't really remember or recognize them that much, because like at that age you like have like a megabyte of memory. She also meets and catches up with her childhood friend Jacob Black, who is like one of the people she actually kind of remembers. Now remember Jacob, he will come up later. So she goes to school where she meets a few more people her age, and that is where she sees them, the Cullens, for the first time. And she's immediately intrigued by one of the members of that family, Edward Cullen. She finds out a little more about the Cullen family. She discovers that they're a little reclusive, they keep to themselves, they drink their water, well, they drink something, and mind their business. Anyway, yes, so she's very intrigued by them. So she does a little research, a little back and forth researching, which is mostly thanks to Jacob, as well as yahoo.com. Y'all couldn't just use good. Anyway, and just from her own observations, she discovers that he has, well, not discovers, she sees that he has really pale skin. His skin is always very cold. His eyes change color, unnaturally strong and fast. Like there's one scene where she's standing on one side of the parking lot and he's standing on the other, and this van is about to hit her, and suddenly he's next to her and he's pushing the van away with his hand. So that raises a few little red flags in her mind, but not the right kind, because speaking of red flags, he gaslit her about that whole situation. Like legit gaslit her. Like she says, I know what you did, I saw you were like across the parking lot and suddenly you were next to me. No, I was standing right next to you, Bella. Like, how would you think that? Like, no, I saw it. Like, well, no one will believe you. Big old red flag. But anyway, eventually Bella comes to the conclusion that the Cullens are vampires. I hope I'm not telling y'all anything you don't know, because at this point, if you haven't seen this movie, you didn't want to see it, or if you haven't heard about it, you didn't want to hear about it. So I'm gonna keep going. Spoilers off the lot. Anyway, she finds out that the Cullens, as well as Edward, are vampires, but that don't scare the good sis away the way that it should. If anything, she kind of leads him into the woods alone. In the woods, in the dark, like, anyway. And just to rub in our faces how dumb of a movie this is on Team Bella's part, he then proceeds to express to her how much he wants to drink her blood. Hers specifically, because hers is like some kind of heroin to him. Like, anyway. But he says that he won't, because him and his family are vegetarians. They only drink the blood of animals, which is comforting, I suppose. Mind you, some vampires have special gifts. Like Alice Cullen can see the future, and Jasper Cullen can manipulate emotions and feelings in other people. Edward can read minds. But for some reason, he can't read Bella's. He also tells her about the fact that he's telepathic before he tells her that he's a vampire. Granted, like, one thing is creepier and weirder than the other, but still they're both equally odd. Anyway, again, there's a lot of back and forth Bella, I'm not good for you. Edward, you won't hurt me. Bella, you're right, I actually want to kill you. Edward, I don't care. And then I think they just come to the conclusion that, you know what, we should just date. You know, because this is not going to get anyone hurt. Let's just date. And they seem to be doing good up until I personally think, and actually a lot of people think, but I personally think one of the best scenes in cinematic history, that baseball scene. Bro, like, they just have these gorgeous supernatural beings running across a field to Supermassive Black Hole by Muse. Like, iconic. Iconic. Like there's nothing above it. Top 2 and not number 2. That's all I'm gonna say about that scene. Whoever organized the soundtrack for like the whole of the Twilight saga deserves some kind of medal, because what? Chef's kiss. Top tier work right there. So they're playing baseball and they're interrupted by these 3 nomad vampires, Laurent, Victoria and James. Now sort of like the background subplot to the whole love story between Edward and Bella is that people are suspiciously being killed in the neighboring town of Seattle, as well as kind of in Forks, I think, as well. And a lot of the people think that it's the doings of a wild animal, but we actually discover that it is the work of these 3 vampires who are not vegetarians like the Cullens. They drink human blood, and that is what. Anyway, because of that, Edward tries to discreetly move Bella away from the action, whereas they could have just like had her leave as soon as these vampires showed up, and everyone was like, oh, it's too late, no, she needs to stay. And it's like, so what? Like, just they could have avoided this whole. Anyway, let me just get a little further. So they try to like shield or hide her scent from these other vampires, but unfortunately James catches Bella's scent and they all like square up. But Laurent, think of the group I see, he realizes that they are outnumbered and that he's gonna leave this fight for another day. He pulls James and Victoria back, and everything seems fine until Edward is like, no, this has become a game for him. He's not gonna stop until Bella's dead. So, okay, like, the Cullens devised this kind of plan where like half the family is going to lead James away from Forks, and Alice and Jasper are going to take Bella back to Florida. But this plan doesn't end up working because Alice gets a vision that he is actually going to be in Florida, and he's actually going to be at Bella's old dance studio. And while they are making arrangements probably to leave Florida, Bella gets this phone call from James, and he makes it sound as if he has kidnapped her mother. So he tells her to come to this dance studio alone, and she manages to get away from Jasper and Alice quite easily, actually. Like, I know it's a crowded place, but like, damn, what happened to your like vampirical senses or whatever? She gets away and she goes to this dance studio only to find that James does not have a mother, actually just baited her into coming, and he proceeds to like, he tries to torture her and like he breaks her leg. I think he bites her arm at one point just before he can kill her. I gotta sneeze. Just before he can kill her, the Cullens rush in to Bella's rescue and they save her, and they kill James. Apparently the only way to kill a vampire is, well, in this universe, is to rip them apart and burn the pieces. Delightful. In the hospital, this just like jumps to the part where they're in the hospital. Bella tells her mother that she wants to stay in Forks with her father, aka with Edward, and she tells Edward that he should never leave her because she would just fall apart, which she does in the second movie. Anyway, a few weeks later, he forces her to go to prom because he wants her to have all these human experiences. She probably wouldn't have gone if you weren't there anyway, so anyway, they start this discussion where she wanted him because James bit her. She wanted the venom to spread so that she could be a vampire just like the Cullens. And this begins, and Edward like coyly says no. He thinks that her soul needs to be saved, and it's like okay, and that just begins the back and forth for another 4 movies, another 3 books, but another 4 movies. This back and forth of whether or not they're actually going to change Bella into a vampire, and like everything that goes along with her still being human. So yeah, that is the synopsis of the movie. Let's get into the characters, starting with Bella. Now I feel like I need to precede this with just like a disclaimer. I am not coming for the actors or the actresses. Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson are actually in my list of like top actors like on the planet, especially Robert Pattinson at the moment. He's killing it, like Lighthouse. What's that other movie with he has a brother and he has the blonde hair? I forgot. But like he's about to be Batman. Damn, like the homeboy is doing the damn thing. So I'm not coming for the actors or the actresses because they're actually really good. But I feel like an actor or an actress is only as good as the material that they are given to work with. So now what I'm gonna get into is the material that they are given to work with, which is not that great. I just gotta say it. As someone who loves this saga, who has loved these characters for the longest time, I'm just gonna say it. Bella is one of the blandest, most mundanest, driest characters ever. Like one of, like sometimes she's the fucking worst. And I'm sorry, but it's true. Even me, someone who loves this whole story, I can't stand her. Like anyway, but I'm gonna tell you why I think why Stephenie Meyer made Bella such a dry ass, boring ass, sad ass bitch. I'm gonna tell you why. A lot of the times, I don't know how many of you have read Wattpad. And yes, I was obsessed with the Twilight series and I read Wattpad. I was one of those hands. What you gonna do about it? Anyway, so the reason they usually make their characters so mundane and so like bland and so what word did I use this now? The reason they have these very understated characters is because it makes it easier for the reader or for the audience, or like the teen girls in the audience, to insert themselves or like imagine themselves in the position of this main character, so that they can actually be living vicariously through this character. They kind of make it understated and make it easier. Like they say like, oh, she has like mousy brown hair and brown eyes. Not that those are mundane. I have brown hair and brown eyes and I'm not mundane, I'll tell you that. But they just make it so understated because it's easier for you to imagine yourself and be like, oh well, she has brown hair, but like I'll just imagine her with blonde hair because I have blonde hair and I want to imagine myself having these experiences with these vampires and werewolves. Well, like I said, you didn't know about this universe, you didn't want to. Anyway, and that's probably why everyone was hating on Kristen Stewart and they were like, oh, she's so bland in this character. Yeah, because it's a bland character. Like, there wasn't much she could do with it. And I don't think they let her do much with it because, like I said, they had to keep it as low-key as possible because it had to appeal to people who wanted to imagine themselves in these situations, imagine themselves as these characters. Bella's dullness can also be found with how eagerly she tries to insert herself into this supernatural world. Like when she finally becomes a vampire in the last movie, she talks about how like she is finally complete, she's finally where she's meant to be, and like all these things. And that's like wholesome in itself, like the idea of finally being at peace. But like having to change who you are almost completely, not the best message to be sending to teen girls. There's a whole chat about whether or not these movies are actually good for young, impressionable teen girls to be watching. I agree with that to a certain extent, but I also feel that fictional movies are sometimes just fictional movies. They don't always have to have this positive, life-affirming message. Sometimes movies are just there to entertain. I think that the Twilight saga did a very good job at that, and I think that Bella Swan will not be winning any awards for Woman of the Year at any point in time. I think as a character, she did what she needed to do to get us to where we wanted to go with regards to this saga. Yeah, there's nothing else really that I would like to say about Bella. There's nothing else I can say. I like her flannel shirts. Anyway, yeah, so let's move on to Edward. A lot like Bella, our boy Edward is a little... He's a little bit like a slice of toast, you know? No butter, no jam, no marmalade. Like, he's just really dry. Like, there's nothing much about him. I understand, like with Bella, it's understandable. She's like a 17-year-old girl. Like, she's still developing her frontal lobe or whatever. But like, Edward is meant to be like this 100-year-old immortal creature, like almost a century, and you couldn't develop a personality in that time. So, like I said, there's nothing about Edward beyond him being a vampire and his unwavering smirk for Bella that really makes him stand out from the crowd. That actually goes for both Bella and Edward. Like, everyone around them is so much more interesting than they are. Like, I'll get into it in a clips when, like, it happens, but, like, Rosalie... In the words of Kenny JD, Miss Myers, where her book at? I would love to read a book, like, same Kenny JD, I would love to read a book about Rosalie. Like, it's so interesting. Like, what happened to her was really sad. But I'd love to read a book about it. Like, it sounds so interesting, especially for a fictional character. Like, come on, like, make bag of that. Why is she giving us another book on like things we already know, like, but just from Edward's perspective? Edward has no personality. Why should I care about what he has to say? Both Bella and Edward, y'all didn't have a personality before you met each other. Y'all weren't interesting as individuals on your own. I should say this, I do admire their loyalty and their commitment for one another, the way they are each other's ride or dies. I think that is a beautiful thing if it is measured and controlled and not just the end all and be all of who you are. You should just, like, you know, be your own person outside of this relationship, and we'll get into that in New Moon when she has a whole breakdown. Like, I understand true love. Well, I don't understand it because I've never experienced it, but like, I understand loving someone so much that you low-key fall apart for them if they were to leave you, but like, it shouldn't be a thing dying over it, like you're willing to fahan because they left you. I admire, like I said, I admire their love and their commitment and their loyalty and their devotion to one another. But even just seeing them like swapping these declarations of devotion to one another, it's really cringy, especially looking now. Like, back then I just like ignored it just so that we could at least get to the baseball scene or like to a part where like one of the wolves were shirtless. I ignored all of that, but now watching it again, it's almost like, no, you should not be saying that if something were to happen to you, I would kill myself. Like, no, no, no. That's a big old no. Big old red flag. If someone tells you that, run. My opinion on the Twilight universe as a whole, I actually found it, personally, I find it very interesting. Like, I find the whole concept of the vampires really cool. The fact that the reason they don't go out into the sun is not because they're gonna burn to a crisp, but because they sparkle. I know that's kind of corny, but I think it's kind of cool that they like switched it up, because that's really how a lot of stories get relayed through generations. Like some things get lost from generation to generation. The fact that their eyes change color based on what kind of blood they drink, gold for animal blood and red if they drink human blood. I just find all of it really interesting. And the Volturi, the whole idea of the Volturi, to me, they really could have done so much with it. Not that Stephanie Meyer did, so they couldn't, but I'm saying, like, if they were to expand on this universe, there's so much they could do. But we'll get into that in the next video. Anyway, in conclusion, the reason that I think that Twilight should be considered a classic is because not a lot of other movies could have done what they did. The impact they had on a lot of people, the cult following they accumulated from just the first movie, not a lot of sagas and not a lot of franchises could say they did that. The list of things Twilight did, that. And the kind of success and audience reception that they got, that's very rare. It's kind of iconic, like the kind of impact they made. Because like a lot of good fantasy films, this film fulfilled a lot of people's fantasies. That's why it's called fantasy films. Also, another reason that I think it should be considered a classic is because a lot of movies that are considered classics are actually also, like a lot of people would argue, Twilight is not very good. I could list a few, but that would be telling, and I don't want to, because what if I'm gonna cover them one day? I just feel like people have and could do a lot worse than Twilight. So why not just add Twilight to the list of classics? If there is a list out there, Twilight should go on it. For all Twilight got me through in primary school, I feel like it should be considered a classic. That's my personal opinion. It's going on my list of personal classics though, for sure. Anyway, so that is my thoughts on Twilight the movie. If you liked this video and you would like to see more like it, like this, subscribe and leave a comment. And no matter what kind of comment it is, because all feedback is good feedback in my book. I'll see you when I see you. Bye.